Thanks, James. Yeah, this is my first time on here, but yeah, I've seen and been following sales confidence for quite some time, and it's been extremely helpful. So, James, thank you for putting this all together. So, yeah, as James mentioned, I'm just really going to talk about inspiring your team to be more effective with prospect engagement, and really sort of being able to drive better discovery calls, but also prepping yourselves and obviously for the sales leaders and how to get that across to the teams and reinforcing this across the sales organization. So for those that don't know who Bigtincan is, Bigtincan is a leader in sales enablement. And I've been with Bigtincan now for 2.5 years, and was their first sales rep here in EMEA, which I'll go into a little bit later on. So I'm just going to start here with just some stats really, because I think that these stats are quite prominent for all the conversations that we've been having throughout the whole day really. And many B2B businesses have this belief that there's this relationship between buyers and the companies, and that there's this sort of almost like this fence in between, because ultimately buyers nowadays have so much more information than what they did, say, 5, 10, even 15 years ago. So a lot of buyers out there are doing research before they even come knocking on the door. We took some of these stats from Robert Rose's paper from the Content Advisory, and as you can see here, just some of the stats that they release is that 71% of buyers begin their process with web searches, and that 68% of buyers prefer to do that search independently, and that 90% of them won't even take a cold call. Now, I'm not going to start the debate whether cold calling is dead or not. That we'll keep that for another day. But as you can see, it's very hard for us, customer-facing teams to be able to get in front of those people and start engaging with them if they're doing this research independently. But also if they're not going to take cold calls, for example. So it is difficult. And what we got to start thinking about is when we do get in front of those people, we need to be as effective as we possibly can, to one, obviously help us as customer facing teams, but also educate the buyer as well in helping them make a decision. So it's really important for us in sales leader positions to make sure that we're giving the best support and material to our customer facing teams to help challenge these informed buyers who have already made a perception as to who we are as a business and how we can help them through the research that they've been doing. So I'm just going to move on to this slide. And again, it has that sort of that wow factor, because obviously with us as sales customer leading facing teams and obviously sales leaders, the buying journey nowadays has just become so complex that the CEB, which is an analyst firm that we partner with, say that 63% of buying teams are likely to be of 4 or more people. Because there is so much information out there, one person doing this on their own can't consume all that info. So what they do is they go into groups or teams and they start doing their own research independently, which then makes the sales process even longer, a lot more complex. So us as customer facing reps, we're always on the back foot. We're always trying to guess what's happening. We're trying to be front and center and top of mind. But if there is more than just one person involved here, it's very hard to do so. And Brent Adamson from Gartner goes on to say that in many ways, the single biggest obstacle to purchasing today is a buying problem that has nothing to do with the supplier at all. It's the buyers. There's so much information that they try to make themselves as subject matter experts in something they don't really know. Because like you saw earlier, some of them won't even take a cold call. They're just do their own research and make up their own mind through some of the information that they find online. So as James mentioned, I used to be in the army. I'm not here to tell you about that, but it was actually 12 years ago today that I actually left the British Army. That was me in Iraq when I was 18 on the bottom of an Apache gunship. But some of the war stories from previous companies that I want to talk about, and obviously my first experience here at Bigtincan, have all been very, very different. When I first started some companies, I was always finding it hard to understand what content was working. Was the sales training really the type of training that I needed? When I tried to do like to have a buddy system with some of the top sellers, was the information that they were giving me truly helping me? Or was it just the way they decided to do it and it just seems to work for them? So it's very hard. And I'm sure some of you on here are brand new to your role and you find it hard in this remote working environment we find ourselves in to really truly understand as you onboard, what content is working for people out there, and also if is the sales training that you're being provided effectively working for you. So luckily enough for me here at Bigtincan, I was able to use our solution to help me figure out what content was working because I was the only salesperson in EMEA. So everybody that was in the sales team, majority of them were in North America. So being able to have a buddy system just didn't work. And then with COVID hitting, 2 years ago or so, I couldn't go and see them. So for me, and how I've been able to be effective is just by using the tool that I work for, obviously Bigtincan, to help me better understand what content works, what are the top people using to help get their foot in the door and be relevant. But also, I'm using a learning platform that keeps me engaged. So I'm being delivered continuous learning, but it's engaging. It's not just the normal click, click, click. So when we start to tie all of these together, what we then want to start looking at is how can we be more effective using the tools that we have. But when we get in front of these people, let's go right back and be effective in the initial meeting we have with these. Like, how can we get our customer facing teams to give the best experience possible to someone who's researching maybe 3 other competitors? So for all the salespeople on there, on here, should I say, sorry, let's think about the pre-meeting. Let's look at their our prospects' LinkedIn profile. Did they like something? Did they comment on something? Try and find something to keep you relevant, and have some rapport with that person. Now, if they haven't been posting actively on LinkedIn, they might be active on Twitter. Well, I'm not saying go around following all their social media channels and stalking them, of course, but they might be on Twitter. There's a lot of people on there as well, who don't just use LinkedIn. And when you're in the meeting, I find it really effective to ask 3 questions. And I actually seen these 3 questions on LinkedIn recently. And one of the first questions I always ask is, Mr. Customer, is this problem the #1 priority in the business? Because what you might find very quickly is that they're actually implementing SalesLoft or Salesforce or whatever it might be. You might not be #1. So it allows you to understand where they are in the journey. Another question to ask is the business motivated to solve this problem with a budget? They might have a problem that they understand, but maybe they don't have the budget for it yet. Or maybe it hasn't become such a big problem they want to assign budget for it. But also it's important to ask, is everyone aligned on the problem that needs solving? And if they're not, then ask them why. Is it really big enough for you to get your resources or for your team to put something together if it's just one person involved in that company? Or does the whole company understand that there is a real issue here and we need to do something about it? So start asking these type of questions and really listen to the customer, and the customer should feel that you're genuinely interested in finding out if you can help them or not. And then post meeting, I've been on the end of finding out, I've been in buyer's positions where I've not had a follow up. I've not had an email following up on what happens next. And I've not had a connection request. It just didn't give me the best experience that person really cared. So you should start doing this. AEs, SDRs, even sales leaders who get involved in calls, you should also send connection requests. One thing I tell my boss to do, if he comes onto a call with me, I'm like, yeah, here's the LinkedIn accounts, go connect with them. Show them that we care and we are listening. And my final tip I'd give to you all is, if you have the time and you're meeting with a marketing director in a telecommunications company, for example, if you want to really try to understand what they do day to day and how you might be able to help them, go onto Google type in marketing director job description telecommunications, and Google will pop up a, you know, a job description of some sort for somebody in that role in that industry, and read it and learn it and understand what they do day to day. They're not just sat around waiting for our phone calls. Well, 90% of them won't even take them, but listen and read what they do. And it will allow you to come across as a subject matter expert when we're engaging in these prospects. And it will come across that you genuinely care. And it will allow you to be a lot more effective than the competitor who's on the phone with them tomorrow. So sales leaders, how are we going to reinforce this? Well, we need to start thinking about, we need to start from the beginning. We need to onboard our new hires and anybody that we're promoting in the business, that this needs to be built into our onboarding program and also be part of as a continuous learning experience for the account and customer facing teams, whether there be the AEs, but also let's not forget all of the SDR/BDRs that are out there, because you may want to promote them, or would like to think you promote them into a customer facing role or a selling role. So if you are going to do that, get them involved. It's important that if they're both on a call, they know what happens next. They know what questions they should be asking to give that customer the best experience they possibly can. And if you are looking to reinforce this even more so, try and find a solution. Might know somebody who has one that allows you to engage with your reps through chatbots, quizzes, and even video assignments with conversation intelligence built in. There's no point in practicing on your prospects with some other solutions out there. Let's practice before we even get to that part in a video assignment, for example. So just let's start thinking about how we might be able to implement this into what we do from a day to day, especially with people being remote. We want to try and engage with them and make them feel part of the team as best we can. So when we start putting this all together, we then start seeing wins, success. One of the problems that LexisNexis came across was that their managers, their sales leaders, didn't have any visibility or insight into any of the activity that their customer-facing teams were doing. So how did they know they were giving a really great buying experience to their prospects? They just had no idea. So, and when they did ask, it was just an often reported, and it wasn't actual true data. So the managers felt that they had less control over their customer-facing teams, which was then having a knock-on impact onto forecasts. And I'm sure with some of the sales leaders that have been on presenting so far, forecast, is something that's all forever changing. But if you can start to understand data and science behind it, and understand that we have prospects engaging in our content, they're more engaged than the ones that aren't. So LexisNexis reached out to us and engaged in our engagement hub, which allowed their sales leaders to help change on the spot to help improve content usage, but also allowed them to understand what learning materials were working for the customer-facing reps. And just a couple of questions that I'll finish up on to get you thinking about how we can help our customer-facing teams. So what do we need to give them in order to give our buyers a better experience? Is it one solution that they're able to navigate through because the conversation changes? Or are they right now in multiple places? How do you know this is the right content for them? Is this a piece of content that's brilliantly used for an enterprise customer rather than an SMB customer? And how are you delivering it? Are you dropping it into a Teams chat? Is it being sent across Slack? Email to everybody, that people lose all this content that's being used by people. Let's try and get it all into one place rather than multiple places for customer-facing teams. But also, how are you measuring the impact that this is delivering? Is that learning solution that you've ever really given you the information you need? And the content, is it being read? How can you really truly say that forecast is coming in when you don't know if the customer is really engaged in the content your customer-facing teams are sending them? So, and then finally, what I said is, if you want to get some answers to some of those questions, come and pop over to the team at Bigtincan, and we'll be able to tell you how some of our sales leaders are using the solution and customer facing teams are using the platform to give a better experience to those buyers and challenging them through our enablement tool. So I'm going to stop there and just say a massive thank you to the Bigtincan team for partnering with Sales Confidence. And thank you, James, for giving us the chance to be part of this today.